Sitaram, and a pleasant good evening to each and everyone. Welcome to tonight's Connecting Through Bhajans. At this point, I would like to invite Auntie Chancy to do our opening prayer, followed by our first bhajan. Thank you.
Namaste, Saram, and a pleasant good evening to everyone on this very rainy evening. If we don't realize how supremely blessed we are, I don't know, then something must be wrong with us. Look at what was imminent yesterday and what passed us by. I hope people understand, we look for big miracles all the time. That is a big miracle. But again, it is how you regard something. Some people that would have just, it passed and they make a joke out of it, and that's the end of that. But as you get older, you would understand when there's so many different ways that something can go wrong, and then you have an outcome like what we had yesterday, you would realize how very blessed we are. And we should always be grateful for the Lord's grace. Okay, so as we begin this evening, I would like us, as always, to focus. But tonight, because one of our dear sisters who is always here, she has lost her brother. And I think almost every one of us, we have all experienced loss. And we know it is not an easy thing, no matter how much you try to, explain it. We are emotional beings, and of course, our emotions will run high. So all we can do is to pray for, to give her that strength and her entire family, of course, and to also pray for the soul of her departed brother. So tonight, let us dedicate this evening, all our chants and our songs, kirtans, bhajans, all of that, to Darvantee and, of course, her brother who passed. Vigneshwara Vinayaka Vishwadhara Namostute 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 Vishwadhara Namostute Suramuni Vandita Vinayaka Bhavabhayanasha Vinayaka Suramuni Vandita Vinayaka Bhavabhayanasha Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Vigneshwara Vinayaka Vishwadhara Namostute 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 Vishwadhara Namostute Suramuni Vandita Vinayaka Bhavabhayanasha Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Sharanam Sharanam Vinayaka Vigneshwara Vinayaka Vishwadhara Namostute. Namaste everyone.
Thank you, Auntie Chancy. So now I'd like to ask Anjoy if she can do a song for us, followed by Sanya and my mom. Thank you.
Sitaram. Shri Ram kahe Hanumana Suno vachan kaho Paramana Suno vachan kaho Paramana Shri Ram kahe Hanumana तुम सीता खबर सुनाई मेरे मन की शोक मिटाई तर आयो बाढ़ निधाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना श्री राम कहे हनुमाना सागर में सेतु बनाया सबल शकर पार लगाया किया लंका पुरी में ठाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना श्री राम कहे हनुमाना लक्ष्मण के जान बचाई सब राक्षस सेन गिराई रावण दश शीश उड़ाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना श्री राम कहे हनुमाना मम काम किया बड़ भारी तुम जीवो वर्ष जारी ब्रह्मानंद भोग सुख नाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना सुनो वचन कहो परमाना श्री राम कहे हनुमाना सीताराम
Sitaram, everyone. I think Sanya is having some difficulty with her device, so I think she will go after me. And again, it's on a sad note that we begin, as Chansey would have reminded, at the passing of Darvantee's brother. And we wish that that soul will have a safe journey, and all will be well in his travel. मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, हरि 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 बोलो, हरि 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 बोलो, भव सिंधु पार कर लो, भव सिंधु पार कर लो, ब्रह्मानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, ब्रह्मानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल, ब्रह्मानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, ब्रह्मानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि गुरु ज्ञान दाता, हरि गुरु ज्ञान दाता, चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल, चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल. The Kirtan says, O mind, at least once chant the name of the Lord. At least once. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. So I think Sanya got bumped off. So I'll ask Auntie Chance if she could do the next one, followed by Anjoy. Thank you.
Namaste again. श्याम सुंदरा मदन गोपाला सच्चिदानंदा साई गोपाला हरि नारायण हरि नारायण हरि नारायण भज रे हरि नारायण हरि नारायण हरि नारायण भज रे साई नारायण सत्य नारायण हरि नारायण भजो रे हरि नारायण सत्यनारायण साई नारायण भजो रे श्याम सुंदरा मदन गोपाला सच्चिदानंदा साई गोपाला हरि नारायण हरि नारायण हरि नारायण भजो रे हरि नारायण हरि नारायण हरि नारायण भजो रे हरि नारायण हरि नारायण हरि नारायण भजो रे श्याम सुंदरा मदन गोपाला सच्चिदानंदा साई गोपाला गोपी गोपालना गोपी गोपालना गोपी गोपालना भजो रे गोपी गोपालना गोपी गोपालना गोपी गोपालना भजो रे हरि नारायण साई नारायण सत्यनारायण भजो रे हरि नारायण सत्यनारायण साई नारायण भजो रे हरि नारायण भजो रे हरि नारायण भजो रे हरि नारायण भजो रे साई नारायण भजो रे साई नारायण भजो रे साई नारायण भजो रे नमस्ते again.
Sitaram. गोविंद हरि गोपाल हरि हे गोपी गोपबाला गोविंद हरि गोपाल हरि हे मुरली गान लोला गोविंद हरि गोपाल हरि हे गोपी गोपबाला गोविंद हरि गोपाल हरि हे मुरली गान लोला हे गिरिधर गोपाला 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 गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे हे गोपी गोपबाला गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे हे मुरली गान लोला गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे हे गोपी गोपबाला गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे हे मुरली गान लोला हे गिरिधर गोपाला हे गिरिधर गोपाला, 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 गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे, हे गोपी गोप बाला, गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे, हे मुरली गान लोला, गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे, हे गोपी गोप बाला, गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे, हे मुरली गान लोला. Start.
Sanya, can you go next? And then my mom will do one. Thank you.
Sitaram. Keshava Madhava Jayadeva Madhusudana, Keshava Madhava Jayadeva Madhusudana, Netra Kamaladhara Ativa Manohara, Netra Kamaladhara Ativa Manohara, Antaryami Prabhu Parameshwara, Antaryami Prabhu Parameshwara, Maya Manusha Veshaliladhara, Maya Manusha Veshaliladhara, Maya Manusha Veshaliladhara, Maya Manusha Veshaliladhara, Keshava Madhava Jayadeva Madhusudana, Keshava Madhava Jayadeva Madhusudana, Netra Kamaladhara Ativa Manohara, Netra Kamaladhara Ativa Manohara, Antaryami Prabhu Parameshwara, Antaryami Prabhu Parameshwara, Maya Manusha Veshaliladhara, Maya Manusha Veshaliladhara, Keshava Madhava Jayadeva Madhusudana, Keshava Madhava Jayadeva Madhusudana, Jayadeva Madhusudana, Jayadeva Madhusudana. Sitaram.
Sitaram once again. Ram ratan dhan payo, ratan dhan payo, Guruji maine Ram ratan dhan payo, Ram ratan dhan payo, ratan dhan payo, Guruji maine Ram ratan dhan payo. वस्तु अमूल दिए मेरी गुरुजी ने, वस्तु अमूल दिए मेरी गुरुजी ने, कृपा करो अपनायो, रतन धन पायो, गुरुजी मैंने राम रतन धन पायो। जन्म जन्म की पूंजी पाई, जन्म जन्म की पूजी पाई, जग में सब ही को आयो, रतन धन पायो, गुरु जी मैंने राम रतन धन पायो। करचिन कुटीवा को छोर न लूटे, करचिन कुटीवा को छोर न लूटे, दिन दिन भरत सवायो, रतन धन पायो, गुरु जी मैंने राम रतन धन पायो। सत्य की नाव खेवतिया सतगुरु, सत्य की नाव खेवतिया सतगुरु, भाव सागर तर आयो, रतन धन पायो, गुरु जी मैंने राम रतन धन पायो, राम रतन धन पायो, रतन धन पायो, गुरु जी मैंने राम रतन धन पायो। मीरा की प्रभु गिरधर नागर, मीरा की प्रभु गिरधर नागर, हर्ष हर्ष यश गायो, रतन धन पायो, गुरु जी मैंने राम रतन धन पायो, राम रतन धन पायो, रतन धन पायो, गुरु जी मैंने राम रतन धन पायो, राम रतन धन पायो। Thank you.
Thank you all very much. So, as Guru Purnima is upon us, we will take this opportunity to recite the Guru Stotram. So I'll ask Auntie Chansi if she can lead us in the Guru Stotram, please. Thank you.
Shabana, do you have the words so that everyone can chant?
Yes, I'm pulling it up now. Just give me a minute.
So this is a very auspicious occasion. It's not only for our Diksha Guru, but for those who are not initiated. You can focus on the Purushottama Guru, which is the Lord himself. Ishvara Adi Deva. So let's begin. Because as you know, knowledge and education is critical in our tradition. It is the most fundamental thing in our tradition. And it's teaching by example, of course. So let's begin. Om Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatparam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Ajnanaatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sthavaram Jangamam Vyaptam Yatkinchit Sacharacharam Tatparam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam
तत्परं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सर्वाश्रुतिशिरोरत्ना विराजितपदाम्बुजः वेदान्ताम्बुजसूर्यो यः तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चैतन्य शाश्वतः शान्तो व्योमातीतो निरञ्जनः बिन्दुनादखलातीतः तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ज्ञानाशक्तिसमारुद्धः तत्त्वमाला विभूषितः भुक्तिमुक्तिप्रदाता च तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अनेकजन्म सम्प्राप्त कर्मबन्धाविदाहिने आत्मा ज्ञानप्रदानेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। शोषणं भवसिन्धोश्च ज्ञानफलां सारसम्पदः गुरोपादुदकं सम्यक् तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। न गुरुरधिकं तत्त्वं न गुरुरधिकं तपः तत्त्वा ज्ञानात् परं नास्ति तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मन्नाथ श्रीजगन्नाथ मद्गुरु श्रीजगद्गुरुः मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरुर्दिरनादिश्च गुरोः परमदैवतम् गुरोः परतरं नास्ति तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
It was remiss of me not to ask Shabana to read the meaning of every verse. So perhaps next week, if we are chanting again, and I hope everyone is chanting as you look on the screen, we can do it like that, because it's very important to understand what you are chanting. So with this, namaste.
Thank you, Auntie Chansey. So now I'd like to pass over to Sanya for tonight's Bacho Ka Khan segment.
Sitaram everyone and welcome to Bachu Kakan. For our opening prayer tonight, Sanea will be saying our opening prayer.
Please bow your heads, close your eyes, and clasp your hands. I will read the translation first. O Lord Ganesh, possessor of a bent trunk and a huge body, whose effulgence is equivalent to 1,000 suns, I pray that you remove all obstacles which I may encounter in all my activities. Vakatunda Mahakaya Sujakoti Samaprapa Nirvinam Kurume Deva Sarvakadesha Sarvada. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om. Sitaram.
Thank you, Sanaya, for our opening prayer. So our presenters for tonight are Ciara, myself, and our young adult is Auntie Vanita. Ciara will be singing a bhajan, Gauri Ganesh. I will be reciting a few verses from chapter 15 from the Bhagavad Gita, and Auntie Vanita will be reading a discourse. Auntie Vanita is a very active member in the Mandir and is very hardworking. So I will now pass over to our first participant, who is Ciara.
Sitaram. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Mahesh, Parvati Nandan, Shri Ganesh. Gauri Ganesh, Uma Mahesh, Parvati Nandan, Shri Ganesh. Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh, Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh, Gauri Ganesh, Uma Mahesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh, Gauri Ganesh, Uma Mahesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh. Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Sharanam Ganesh, Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh, Shivanandana Ganapati Ganesh, Gauri Ganesh, Uma Mahesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh, Parvati Nandana Shri Ganesh. Sitaram.
Thank you, Ciara. So for my presentation tonight, I will be reciting 10 verses from chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is Yoga of Supreme Spirits. Ata Panchadashodhyayah Shri Bhagavanuvacha Udvamulamadasyakam Ashwatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavita Adashchotram Prasitasya Shakaha Guna Pravidya Vishila Pravalaha Adascha Mulananusantatani कर्मानुबन्धी मनुष्यलोके न रूपमस्येत ततोपलभ्यते नातो न चातिर्न न सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेलं सुरिमूलमूल मसङ्गशास्त्रेण न द्रेण चित्वा तत्तपदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यं यस्मिन् गता न निर्वन्ति भूयः त्वमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः पवित्रा पसता पुराणी निर्माणमोहाजितसङ्गदोषाः अद्यामनित्या विनिवृत्तकामाः द्वन्द्वे विमुक्ता सुहृदुक्तसङ्गैः रचन्त्यमुदा पदवमयं ततत् न तद्भासयते सूर्यः न च शाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निर्वन्तान्ति तत्तं परमं मम ममैवांसो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनःसृष्टानि इन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिष्ठानि कर्षति शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्च प्रकृत ईश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुगन्धानि वैशति Shrotram chakusparanam cha rasanam grama eva cha adhischayam anischayam vishanam pasa eva te utkramantam sitam vapi ujanam vagunaivatam vimudananupassyanti Pashyanti nanachaksukah. The meaning of these 10 verses are, the blessed Lord said, they speak of the indestructible Ashwatha tree, having its roots above and branches below, whose leaves are the Vedas. He who knows it is alone a Veda knower. Below and above are spread its branches, nourished by the gunas. Sense objects are its buds, and below, in the world of men, stretch forth the roots originating in action. Its form is not perceived here as such, neither its end, or its foundation, nor its resting place. Having cut asunder this firm-rooted Ashwatha tree with the strong axe of non-attachment, then that goal should be sought after having gone, none returns again. I seek refuge in the primeval Purusha from which steamed forth all activity. Free from pride, delusion, victorious over the evil of attachment, dwelling constantly in the self, their desires having completely retired, freed from the pairs of opposites such as pleasures and pain, the end-deluded reach that goal eternal. Neither does the sun shine there, nor the moon, nor the fire, to which having gone they return not. That is my supreme abode. An eternal portion of myself, having become a living soul in the world of life, abiding in Prakriti, draws to itself the 5 senses, with the mind as the 6th. When the Lord obtains a body, and when he leaves it, he takes these and goes with them, as the wind takes scents from their seats. Presiding over the air, the eye, the touch, the taste, and the smell, so also the mind, he enjoys the sense objects. Him who departs stays and enjoys, who is united with gunas, the deluded do not see, but they do behold him who possesses the eye of knowledge. Thank you, Auntie Taram. I now pass over to Auntie Vanita for her discourse tonight.
Sitaram, this story is entitled The Blue Jackal. Once there was an adventurous jackal who frequently strayed into the village looking for food. The village was filled with dogs that scared the jackal. Although he was scared of dogs, the jackal loved food and traveled to the city again and again. One day, as he was going to enter a house, he heard barking. He was shocked to find a gang of dogs running towards the house. They looked violent and caused the jackal to panic. He ran and tumbled into a tub of blue dye. The dogs couldn't see him and they ran another way. Now the jackal was completely blue from head to toe. He appeared very different from any other animal. The jackal was pleased as no one would be able to recognize him and he could easily fool anyone into the jungle. Just like he thought, everyone in the jungle was surprised to see such an unusual animal. The small animals, the lion, the tiger, all asked who he was and who had sent him. I have been sent by God himself to look after you. I will now be the king of the jungle, the jackal said. The lion protested, saying he had always been the king of the forest. From now, that must change and all of you must serve me, the jackal happily replied. Some animals, like the tiger, protested and asked what would happen if they didn't obey him. He replied, saying God would destroy the entire jungle if they didn't. Scared for their lives and their jungle, the animals asked the blue jackal what would he like them to do. Bring me lots of food, said the blue jackal promptly. The animals quickly hurried and returned with lots of food for the jackal. He had so much food that he gave his leftovers to the other animals and told them that they had to serve him fresh food every day. He even threw out the pack of jackals from the forest because he knew that they could identify him someday. The blue jackal was very happy with himself for fooling the entire forest and was happy to be away from the city dogs. But the one day the band pack of jackals was walking around the forest and howling loudly. The blue jackal began howling out of habit too. Because of this mistake, the other animals quickly identified him as a jackal and destroyed him. Moral of the story: be true to yourself and don't pretend to be someone you're not. Sit down.
Thank you, Sanaya, Ciara, and Auntie Bonita for your participation. Hope to see you again on Wednesday. Thank you, and Sitaram.
Thank you all for participating in our Bachoka Khan this evening, and special thanks to Auntie Vanita for sending in her piece as well. So now we'll have a couple bhajans and then I'll pass over to Auntie Chansey for our catechism this evening. So Auntie Chans, can you do one and then my mom will do the other? Thank you.
Sure, Shamana. I just want to say congratulations to all the children again for doing such a brilliant job. Lovely words of advice, that the moral of that story, Benita. Sage advice for sure. Okay.
हरि नाम गाते चलो साई नाम गाते चलो हरि नाम गाते चलो साई नाम गाते चलो माधव गोविंद गोविंद माधव नाम गाते चलो माधव गोविंद गोविंद माधव नाम गाते चलो हरि नाम गाते चलो साई नाम गाते चलो गोविंद विठला गोपाल विठला गोविंद विठला गोपाल विठला जय पर्टी विठला जय साई 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 विठला माधव गोविंद गोविंद माधव नाम गाते चलो माधव गोविंद गोविंद माधव नाम गाते चलो हरि नाम गाते चलो साई नाम गाते चलो गोविंद विठला गोपाल विठला जय पर्टी विठला जय साई विठला जय पर्टी विठला जय साई विठला जय पर्टी विठला जय साई विठला माधव गोविंद गोविंद माधव नाम गाते चलो माधव गोविंद गोविंद माधव नाम गाते चलो हरि नाम गाते चलो साई नाम गाते
Sitaram again. Guru ji ki चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ, गुरु जी की चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ, जन्म जन्म के भगिया फल को पाओ, जन्म जन्म के भगिया फल को पाओ, गुरु जी की चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ, लगे मोह माया कब हो जगत के, लगे मोह मायन कब हो जगत के, दया सिंधु गुरु जी को चरण ढयाओ, दया सिंधु गुरु जी को चरण ढयाओ, गुरु जी की चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ, भटकता रहा हूँ मैं युग युग से स्वामी, भटकता रहा हूँ मैं युग युग से स्वामी, मिली ज्ञान आँखें हरि दर्श पाओ, मिली ज्ञान आँखें हरि दर्श पाओ, गुरु जी की चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ, काम क्रोध मद लोभ शत्रु है भारी, काम क्रोध मद लोभ शत्रु है भारी, गुरु ज्ञान कंग से मार भगाओ, गुरु ज्ञान कंग से मार भगाओ, गुरु जी की चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ, जिस वेद कहता अजन्म अनादि, जिस वेद कहता अजन्म अनादि, उस देख कर मन की दुविधा मिटाओ, उस देख कर मन की दुविधा मिटाओ, गुरु जी की चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ, गुरु जी की चरणों में शीश को झुकाओ. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. So now I'd like to pass over to Auntie Chancy for our catechism. Thank you.
Namaste again, everyone. So this evening, I wanted to look at something that Gandhi spoke about. It really is a very concise and succinct message. Really and truly, you could say it is the entire Vedas, the entire Bhagavad Gita, in these 7 sins, as he calls them. But before I even begin with that, I will just do a little overview on Gandhi, and most people would know who he is. Oh, sorry, who he was. Although you feel that because of how his ideas are still very much alive, you know, you think of him as being around. Without doubt, Mahatma Gandhi was one of the greatest and most influential human beings the world has ever seen. His ideas and teachings continue to have an impact on most civil rights movements and most examples of civil disobedience. He was hugely important and a source of inspiration in the lives of Reverend Martin Luther Jr. in the United States with the civil rights movement, and of course Nelson Mandela in the fight against apartheid. Now these are only two figures, but because of their stature, we all know who they are. I just referenced these two, but there are countless others. Very much like Tagore, he was also a polymath with expertise in many areas. We only think of him, when we think of Ahimsa, we think of Gandhi, but there's so much more. This in itself is a whole, you could talk for days on Gandhi. He was such a, that's why he certainly deserved the moniker Mahatma, great soul. His expertise was vast and in so many areas: ecology, environmentalism, economics, natural justice, spirituality, the whole idea of nationalism, all of these. His stature was so great that in his life, Albert Einstein was inspired by Gandhi's views on nonviolence. And he once said, "I believe that Gandhi's views were the most enlightened of all the political men of our time." Now, Gandhi was born on October 2nd, 1869, and he was assassinated on January 30th, 1948. And I don't know how many of you know that Time magazine were deciding, they could not decide who was the man of the century, at the turn of the century, of course. And it was a toss-up between Einstein and Gandhi. And unfortunately, or I shouldn't say that, Einstein won. But when I say this, there's so much more to Gandhi. And Einstein, of course, was an admirer of Gandhi. But there was so much more. He contributed in so many different ways. But nevertheless, his values and all of that still live on. There are many elements of Gandhian thought and philosophy. And at the beginning of the 20th century, we have the Swadeshi movement and the Satyagraha. And both of these were fundamental to Gandhi. He believed that the whole gamut of man's activities constitutes an indivisible whole. And he thought that life could not be segregated in compartments like social, political, economic, religious, all of this. So this was a fundamental thought behind the Swadeshi movement. He did not believe that there should be compartmentalization, but we know this. We talked about this in past discussions, that is the Hindu view. We must be consistent. As Vinita said, be true to thine own self. We should not have one set of behavior for a religious setting and one set for when we are out and about, and we should be consistent. Our values should remain intact. He believed in selfless service. In his relentless experiments with truth, he tried to integrate various aspects of life. And he saw the Swadeshi as not merely an economic doctrine. That Swadeshi movement, I think began in around 1903 or so. And this was really, it was more than an economic doctrine, but most people interpret it as that. It was about, of course, it was an instrument against colonial rule when India was being bombarded by foreign goods. So Gandhi decided that we should, or Indians should, buy local. Buy local and support your Indian entrepreneurs and producers and so on. All commodity items, any manufactured items, buy it locally rather than imports. This is why you see that famous picture with him sitting there in his cotton garments with his spinning wheel. That is what that meant. That was the symbol of the Swadeshi movement. He believed that you should see God in all. He saw Swadeshi as not merely an economic doctrine, but rather for the service of one's immediate neighbors. And in his view, there should be no distinction between one's own and that of others, whatever it may be. There should not be any distinction. And of course, this is central to Hindu doctrine. And in the Hindu tradition, we know we should see God in all, and we should engage in selfless service. So this again. So in the quest for Swaraj, which means self-rule, this is what he advocated. Okay? The Satyagraha, which is of course non-violent protests, and I would encourage people please to read. He's such an inspirational figure in so many different ways, and he should not be, we just have this reductionist way that we look at him in only one, only one facet of his greatness, really. He championed many causes. Chief among them was, of course, untouchability. And for this, he was not held in favor by the Orthodox Brahmins. He was against and fought against a lot of the upper caste people who oppressed the untouchables, or the Dalits, as he called them in the end, Harijans, God's children. So nothing could say it better than that. He championed the cause, and he was very concerned about the tribal people, about women, about lepers, all of those who were relegated to the sidelines, to otherness. He championed their cause. So true compassion, another central quality of a Hindu. He saw all jobs as equally important, and for this he opposed the Varna system. He did not believe that Varna should be by birth, and we discussed this in the past when I talked about the Varna system. And he thought that all professions were equally important. We also discussed all of this. So the two things are Satyagraha and the Swadeshi movement, which really was about self-sufficiency, trying to consume locally produced goods. He also believed in the fundamental equality of all religions. Sarva Dharma Samabhava. This was his belief. And of course, he was resolute in this belief. And in India, because of the tensions and the violence between Hindus and Muslims, violence that was being stoked by people, politicians, technocrats, he was against this. He believed all Indians should be equal. And for this, of course, we know he lost his life. He was assassinated by a right-wing member of the RSS in India. This is why we must be very cautious not to be dogmatic and also to be gullible. Hinduism is not supposed to be something where you're claiming or trampling on other people's rights and claiming that you are superior. That is not what Hinduism is all about. So he paid the ultimate price. He paid the ultimate price. He was an anti-colonial nationalist, a political ethicist, something that is really rare because we all know politics and ethics make that, very strange bedfellows. That is something so incredible in this day and age. He also was critical, of course, to paving the way for Indian independence, because by his Satyagraha and all the marches, the Great Salt March and all of that, he got Indians to stand up. There are many different interpretations as to why India gained independence in 1947, some of which talking about it was not profitable anymore for the East India Company and so on. But we cannot deny Gandhi's role. He believed and fought against centralized governments. He championed the cause of Panchayati Raj, meaning in every state and every community, there should be a panchayat. Decentralized rule, because of course, India is a vast continent. So many different people, languages, cultures, traditions vary tremendously. And he believed things can get, we talk about bureaucracy. Well, that is the ultimate bureaucracy because of how huge that the land of India is. So this is why he wanted to have decentralized rule to create greater efficiency and to really help people. So these are a few of the profound truths that Gandhi stood for. And these are just a few. This is really literally a drop in the bucket. So what I will do, I will address maybe one or two of these 7 sins. And as I said before, it is absolutely brilliant how succinct, the brevity of it, but yet the profundity. So the first one is, and remember, 7 sins. These are 7 sins. Wealth without work. Wealth without work. This is true at so many levels and has so many ramifications, most of which are negative. We have wealth generated from corruption, corrupt activity, from cheating, from bribery, graft, illegal activity. And if we multiply this from a personal level to societal and then country worldwide, well, we need only to look around us and we can see the effect and the impact it is having all over the world, where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. But we are also morally, spiritually, ethically bankrupt. So gaining wealth without earning wealth, he deems as a sin. There is something to be said for the statement, when one works hard for money, one knows the value and would not waste and fritter it away on frivolous things. One must perform one's duty. We have many people who inherit money, wealth, without understanding the sacrifices made, and they often misuse and waste. We need to think about this. Sometimes we want to give our children the very best, but if they don't understand the sacrifices made and they think it's something just to be given on a platter, we need to address that. Here Gandhi is speaking about, and of course we can talk about wealth in so many different ways. There are many concepts of wealth, but you get the idea. Without putting in the work, whether it is through corruption, whether it is through just inheriting something without understanding the value, it can lead, it's a slippery slope that can lead to nothing good. The second one he mentions is pleasure without conscience. Now, when we looked at the 4 goals of life, remember, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, and we looked at karma. And I gave a long explanation. It's legitimate desires, and you know what they were. They had to be consistent with dharma, morality, spirituality, ethics. So what does this mean, conscience? Pleasure without conscience. A very easy and simple guide is to place yourself or your family, your children, or in the position of someone being used or abused, or being put in a powerless position. All for the pleasure of another person, or for the happiness of another person. We can look at it in many different ways, and one, I would say, eating meat, dairy. When we look at the violations, I mean the cruelty, the extreme violence, the callousness, what happens to chickens, the immorality and the inhumanity, then what it is doing to the environment. For our pleasure, eating pleasure. Negative karma, of course, we are also incurring here. I'm looking at the time and I'm seeing how late it is already, so I will try to be as brief as I could. The second one we can look at is overindulging. Lord Krishna tells us about moderation. Overindulging, whether it is alcohol, food, but let's say alcohol. This may lead to abuse in one's own family. That person may be an embarrassment to their family with the type of behavior and the language, etc. Then, of course, there is the taboo subject of incest and sexual abuse. You know, it makes no sense that we bury our heads in the sand. This is the reality all around us, and the figures are frightening, alarming. Overindulging, those who abuse women who are in a helpless, powerless position. And, you know, we have many of them here in Trinidad, and when we think about Venezuelan girls and so on, imagine these girls as our daughters. You see, when we place ourselves in the position of the other person, only then you can understand. Sometimes we only have compassion and we have feeling only for our own children and our own family and for no one else. And that is the most un-Hindu thing. Overindulging without thinking of others who are needy. So we are eating. I remember the story with Swami, and he's talking about the person whose plate is piled high while his neighbor goes hungry. Overindulging without thinking of others who are needy, who need food, household items, etc. Instead of thinking only of one's selfish needs, we should engage in selfless action. Those kids who lime and stay out late and have their parents worrying for their own selfish pleasure. Remember, as Swami says, help ever, hurt never. Hurt never. Try our best not to let our actions be hurtful. Another one is the pleasure of travel. Some of us, because we could afford it, we hop on planes flying to Miami over the weekend, just for the weekend. Sometimes for the most frivolous reasons. We couldn't care less about our carbon footprint, but yet we sit. The impact on the environment, global warming, rising sea levels, all of this, all of our actions have an impact. So we sit and we do puja and we talk about, that in our tradition, we recognize the God in all living things, and we respect Mother Earth, and all of this. There's that connecting Atman that is present in, all of this talk. But our actions, I'm not saying don't travel, I'm talking about frivolous and things that are not needed. Loving, another one, and I'm almost finished here. I will cut off at the second one and we will continue with the rest next time. Those people who love to play loud music. All of this, for your own selfish pleasure, you don't have a conscience for anybody who lives close to you, for older persons in your neighborhood. So you blast music as if you are deaf, without any regard for anyone else. Think. And this one is a pet peeve of mine, fireworks. So we celebrate Diwali, giving thanks to God by doing what? By wreaking havoc, by creating scenes of horror, suffering, sometimes death for countless animals. Stress. Sometimes you see videos of these dogs trembling with fear. Stress for older persons can cause people to have heart failure and all of that, heart attacks, because of how loud. What pleasure is there in that? What pleasure? We need to think. We need to think. We talk about seeing the divine in all. And we finish our Lakshmi Puja and we begin. For our own selfish pleasure, we create agony and pain. So we need to reflect on these things. Not just because you could do something means you should do it. Just the same way we say to engage your brain before your mouth, we need to engage our brain before we act. Not just what we say, but how we behave. And if nothing good, we can use the same rule. If nothing good is going to come from something, or negative things are going to arise, why do it? Let's find an alternative. So understand me well. I'm not saying that we should not have pleasure, we should not enjoy things, but we must be responsible. We must do it in a responsible manner. So this is only two: wealth without work and pleasure without conscience. There are 5 others. So next week, hopefully, I would be able to talk a little bit about maybe two more or three more, and so we go. But in the meantime, I would like to encourage you, please, to read up on Mahatma Gandhi and you know, expand your knowledge. Let us not just think of him in one mold. There's so much to read about and learn about this man. What an inspirational figure he was. Definitely an icon. And you know, it's very sad what is happening in India now, because what he stood for was unity, and instead what we are having, it's certainly not unity. So with this, I thank you very much for listening. Namaste.
Thank you, Auntie Chancy. So now I'll pass over to Mrs. Siu for tonight's closing prayer.
Sitaram, let's get ready for prayer. Om Mantrahinam Kriyahinam Bhaktihinam Janadanam Yat Pujitam Maya Deva Paripurnam Tadastvame. Om Kaina Vacha Manasendriyatva Buddhyatmanava Pratite Sabhava Karomi Adyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanayiti Samarapayami. Om Tvameva Mata Chabita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Chasaka Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om. Namaste, Sitaram.